Good evening. I would like to call to order this meeting of the Commission on Inclusion, Equity, and Diversity. Today is Tuesday, October 20th at 7 p.m., and this is a virtual session, and I will now read to you the governor's order. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the North Andover Commission on Inclusion, Equity, and Diversity will be conducted via remote participation for members of the public. Specific information in the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website at www.northandoverma.gov. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so on their television by tuning into Comcast Channel 8 or Verizon Channel 26, or online at www.northandovercam.org. No in-person attendance or for members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite our best efforts, we will post on the Town of North Andover's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. So thank you, everyone. And I think I would like to start this meeting by doing some introductions. So if you could introduce yourself, what committee, if you feel comfortable, you represent, and maybe just a little bit about why you were interested in serving on this committee. And I'm just going to go in order of how I see you. Dave Van Arsdale. Don't forget to unmute.
I come as a representative from the Council on Aging. We are relatively new residents to North Andover 4 years ago, having moved from Arizona, but having come back to Massachusetts after 40 plus years. And I am a retired Presbyterian pastor, which means I've spent my life dealing with a wide variety of diversity in a variety of settings. Some in suburban, but also some very urban and some rural.
Thank you. Dave, people usually do the opposite of what you did. Go from Massachusetts to Arizona, not the other way around.
Kids, grandchildren.
Got it.
Here.
Understood. Deanna.
Hello, I'm Deanna Lima, the Community Support Coordinator for the town of North Andover. It's a relatively new position. It's just been about 2 years now, and my work is to serve the residents, the community of North Andover, specifically with matters of behavioral health needs in terms of prevention and intervention if there's a crisis or a need. So very happy to be here. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Kathy Darby.
Let me unmute. Hello, my name is Kathy Darby. I'm the Human Resources Director for the town of North Andover. I've been here in that position for about 9.5 years now, and I provide a variety of services to staff and retirees around employment, benefits, and just a myriad of other things. And so I'm happy to be part of this group. I don't know everybody, but I recognize a lot of the faces and the names, and I'm happy to be serving with you.
Thank you. And poor Kathy's office is right next door to mine, so she has to see me every single day. All right, going to row 2, Lisa Hunter.
I'm Lena Hunter. No problem. I am in the Committee of Inclusion and Equity and Diversity. Happy to help. I am from Colombia, South America. I moved about 18 years ago to North Andover, and I'm really happy to help in any way I can and to meet you all.
Great, thank you. Lorraine.
Hi, I'm Lorene. I'm the assistant superintendent in North Andover, and I have been involved in a lot of curriculum work around racism, inclusion, equity. My background is special ed, so inclusion in that respect as well. Involved with Supraja from the Race Amity Club. A few years back, we met with the town selectmen, and we have had Race Amity Day declared in perpetuity in North Andover. We've done some celebrations, professional development. I'm currently involved in a pre-assessment. We're working with Boston College to look at equity and racism in our schools. So I met with 4 principals today and have a few more to go next week. So lots of work around this issue. So I'm excited to be here and looking forward to meeting everybody.
Thank you. Lisa, do you have a dog? Lena, I'm sorry. Lena, do you have a dog? I think you're on mute.
Yes, I have 2 dogs.
I just saw them being let out in the background. It's funny because you'll see some activity behind me too before long.
I'm like, you can't do that.
Sorry, you look just like my friend Lisa. So I'm sorry. I'm gonna probably do that a few times.
Don't worry.
Reverend Jay, welcome.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lawrence Jay. I'm the director here at Rolling Ridge, and Cantor Vera and I are representing the clergy of North Andover. I've been in North Andover for just a little over 3 years now. I come from California and slowly kind of getting involved more with the community. And when I heard about this commission, I felt that this was something that is near and dear to my heart. We're really looking into at Rolling Ridge about the spirituality that's involved in terms of embracing and connecting all people. And so being a part of this is a way for me to be able to serve the community and to make more connections. And so it's good seeing all of you and glad to be here.
Great, thank you. Lieutenant, you're up.
Hi, I'm EJ Folds. I'm a detective lieutenant at the police department. I am commander of the Criminal Investigation Division. And I am here because the incidents that sparked these difficult conversations obviously involved actions of police officers in other parts of the country. So I'm here to give a perspective from the police point of view, as well as learn from other points of view, listen, maybe address some of the policies we have and make you aware of the policies we have in place and some of the trainings, and hopefully introduce some new trainings that will better help us serve the community.
Thanks, EJ. Jennifer.
Hi there, I'm Jennifer Bauer. I am a resident of North Andover. I have been here for 15 years now, but before that, I spent my whole life in Lowell, which is where I grew up, and I'm really happy to be part of this committee. I'm passionately involved in anti-racism work, anti-bias work, and so I'm excited to see what we can do to bring North Andover forward.
Great, thank you very much. Tony?
Sorry. Hi, I'm Tony Wedge. Also a resident of North Andover. Been in North Andover for about 13 years. Originally from Haverhill, Mass. So this is my first committee that I am joining, and just want to do my part as far as being a resident of North Andover and helping out in any way that I can. I also run a private practice in North Andover as a therapist, so working with many different people from many different backgrounds, and hope that my experience can bring something to the table.
Great, thank you, Tony. Bria.
Hi, everyone. My name is Bria Gadsden. I have lived in North Andover for about 2 years now. I'm originally from Boston, but what brought me out here was getting my master's in community health from Merrimack College. My background is in public health, and as you all know or should know, racism is a public health issue, so that's one of the reasons why I decided to join this commission. I'm also the co-founder of Merrimack Valley, Black and Brown Voices. I encourage you to follow us on social media to learn more about the work that we do. We just wrapped up our Black and Brown owned market that we had on Sunday and at the Stevens Coolidge Place. I hope you were able to attend. One thing we do is we provide Black and Brown owned business owners with opportunities to promote their business and sell their work. And we also do a lot in the community, such as the Back to School Test Fund that we launched in September, where we provided Black and Brown youth living in the Merrimack Valley area with Chromebooks and school supplies. So it's a pleasure to meet you all, and I look forward to engaging in meaningful dialogue.
Thank you, Bria. Ellen?
Hi, everyone. I'm Ellen Peters. I'm actually a lifelong resident of North Andover. I grew up in the town, went away to college, and then came back. And I'm the current assistant principal at the Sargent Elementary School and the Atkinson Elementary School here in town. And I heard about this committee through my work on the Building a Respectful Community Committee. So that connection was there, and I really enjoyed being a part of that committee and meeting other people from town and connecting about these important issues that the town faces, but even from the lens of the public schools and what we can do in the public schools to promote these values. So I'm excited to meet everybody and participate in this group. Thank you.
Thank you, Asia.
Hi, my name is Aisha Valdez. I'm the support service coordinator at the youth center. I just started there back in March. I went to the middle school, went to the high school. I went to Atkinson Elementary School, so I've been in town for a while. Dee actually presented this meeting to me, and I just thought, it's an opportunity I didn't want to pass up, just because I kind of want to bring just a different sense of diversity and all this stuff back to the youth center. So I am really excited to be working with all of you guys.
Thanks, Asia. Jay?
So, hi, this is Vijay Valala. I've been a resident of North Andover for 15 years. And I've done a lot of D&I events in my company, Schneider Electric, which was not in North Andover till a few years ago. I brought off, it was exciting. I learned a lot and I was able to contribute. And I thought I can get some corporate view into this, how we did there, and make a difference and be a role model for my kids. So look forward to working with you guys.
Thank you. Supraja?
Hi, my name is Supraja. I'm the president of Race Amity Club at the North Andover High School. I've had that position for 2 years since I joined as a sophomore. I was actually really excited when Miss Marks presented this opportunity to me because I feel like I get to have a voice not only in the high school but within the town. So I'm really excited to be here.
Great, thank you. And Vera?
Hi, I'm Cantor Vera Brookeisen. I serve Temple Manuel of Haverhill as its spiritual leader, and I've lived in North Andover for 4 years. I'm here with Reverend Jay as a clergy representative, and I'm here because learning about one another is great. Learning about how we can help one another live with equality and justice is even better, and I'm excited to have an opportunity to participate in that in our town.
Dennis, you are on mute.
Thanks, Vijay. I thought I clicked the button there. Okay, so my name is Dee Casey. I'm the deputy town manager. I serve in the town manager's office, and I was asked by the town manager to serve as the interim chair on this committee, and I was thrilled to do so. And I really look forward to working with all of you so that we can bring all of these resources not only to our residents, but also to our employees who serve the citizens and who have firsthand interaction with all of the residents and all of the visitors that come through North Andover. So thank everybody for joining us. This is exciting work. I think we're only missing 2 people, so that's outstanding participation. I really appreciate it. The second order on our agenda is to review our mission statement. So has everyone had the opportunity to take a look at the mission statement? So I just wanted to run through some of the duties, because I think that will be helpful when we talk about officer positions and then some of the subcommittees. Because this is such a large committee, there's 18 of us total. I think one of the approaches, and I am more than happy to entertain any other suggestions, is to break up into smaller committees. I think that it would be easier for us to do our work if we used subcommittees versus just having all 18 of us gather together to try to, work on different aspects of the mission statement. So the mission statement is, the commission is an advisory commission of the town of North Andover whose duty shall be to provide advice and recommendations to the town manager and board of selectmen. The commission shall provide recommendations to the board and town manager to help the town in creating and maintaining a cohesive community that respects all individuals by encouraging cooperation, tolerance, and respect among and by all persons who come in contact with the town of North Andover. The commission shall recommend effective strategies for public engagement, removing barriers, and increasing access to town services for our town's diverse population. The commission shall recommend area for town investment in order to use financial tools to address root causes of inequities and lack of access, and to strategically allocate public resources to create community partnerships to better understand and address equity impacts in town. The commission shall strive to facilitate the building of relationships with underserved and underrepresented communities. The commission shall examine the community and provide feedback that will assist in fostering mutual understanding and respect among all members of the town. The commission shall work through education and outreach to discourage prejudice and discrimination among any group of people or any other status protected by law on account of race, creed, color, religion, national origin, ancestry, gender, sexual orientation, veteran status, age, or disability. And finally, the commission shall continue the North Andover Conservation Series. The North Andover Conservation Series will be an important listening, education, and learning tool for the community and its leaders. So that's kind of a very broad charge that we have. So I think in looking at officers and then subcommittees, I think it will help for us to kind of see what the selectmen are expecting us to do in terms of our work, and then figuring out what subcommittees that we think would be sensical for us to look at. So I wanted to move on to, in case anyone has any other questions or comments on the mission statement. Deanna?
Any chance of changing the word tolerance to acceptance?
If that's what the group wants, I don't see any reason why we could not do that.
I mean, tolerance, we want more than to tolerate people. We want to accept people and promote that. So I think we should get away from that language of tolerance. Others?
I agree. I agree. Okay, so does someone want to make a motion to change the word tolerance to acceptance in any and all places where it is on the mission statement?
I, Kathy Darby, make a motion to change the word from tolerance to acceptance on the mission statement and anywhere else that it is listed.
Thank you. Can someone second that?
I'll second that.
Dave Van Art.
Okay, so I have a second from Dave. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, if you just want to raise your hand. It is, Lena, is it unanimous? Yeah, okay. Thank you. So the next, one thing I do want to bring up before we leave the mission statement is one member brought up the commission's title. And wanted to entertain changing the order of the words to diversity, equity, and inclusion versus inclusion, equity, and diversity. I think most of the literature is DEI versus IED. And I know some of you, if you abbreviate commissions like I commonly do, I don't think IED is a short term that we want to use for the committee. So Dave actually brought this up. Dave, do you want to say anything more on that? I think you should tell the story of where it came from.
IED is usually a roadside bomb used in war.
Right. Right.
So I would entertain a motion that we request the selectmen that we formally change the name of the committee if someone wants to make that motion.
Since I brought it up, I'll move it.
Okay. Can I have a second?
I will second it.
Okay. And any other discussion? Anyone want to add anything?
D, are we changing it to diversity, equity, and inclusion? Or
Yes, it would
diversity, inclusion, and equity.
It could be either. I mean, I just think getting away from the IED is probably a more positive thing.
Absolutely. I just don't want to go from IED to die. So I think DEI.
Yeah.
Okay.
DEI.
Good point.
Thank you, EJ. Okay, so with that friendly amendment, it always takes the cop to come up with these kind of things, doesn't it? Okay. So with that friendly amendment to Dave's original motion on the name, Deanna seconded, we have had discussion. All in favor? You can raise a hand. It is unanimous. Thank you.
Right.
Okay. So moving on to permanent officer positions. So in the original charge by the Board of Selectmen, they wanted to have permanent chair and other positions within 90 days of the commission's launch. And it took a little bit for us to get the whole entire committee together. But I would like for people to think about for our next meeting, if you would like to be a chair, the co-chair, or maybe the secretary. So those would be the three positions that we would be looking for. Obviously, anybody has the utmost support of the Board of Selectmen in terms of helping post the meetings and all of that good stuff. It's just I, as a staff person, only serve as the interim chair until the committee itself can elect its own board. So I just want to put that out there for discussion. And if anyone has any questions about that, if they want to, reach out to me offline to talk about that, I'm more than happy to do so. But I did want to plant the seed for this first meeting that we will need to have some other people become officers in the committee. So any questions on that? Okay, great. So subcommittees, and so I put this on for discussion because we have the mission statement and it's really broad. So I wanted to get feedback from all of you on what areas do you think that we should have subcommittees to focus on the work that we need to do. So one that I think kind of really naturally lends itself is the conversation series. I was not here when there was a conversation series, so I'm not exactly sure what that entailed, but I think having a subcommittee that works on, invigorating, starting, and supporting the conversation series, that makes sense. Do we have another subcommittee that works, with Lorraine and her people on education piece? So I basically put this on here for more discussion. I don't have the answers. I'm looking for the group to contribute. Because I think that, the work is very broad, and to the extent that we can really narrow it down and have small 2 to 3, people subcommittees to work on these things, I think we'll get a lot more work done. I'm afraid I've served on committees in the past, and I know EJ knows too, the larger the committee, I think sometimes the less work that gets done because there's just too many voices trying to come to consensus, whereas the smaller a group can be, I think the faster and the more impactful the work can be. So I put that out there for discussion. I will stop talking, and whoever wants to pick it up, feel free.
I think there should be a committee on economic development, specifically looking at ways on how we can provide more resources for Black and Brown owned small business owners, you know, thinking about, well, I guess this would be, and if there's a way to include housing in that as well, you know, just like, what are we doing to make sure that people can afford living in this town? And so, but definitely economic development. I think that's huge, and figuring out, okay, well, what other programs or services does the town need to provide for people in order to help them be financially free? So that's my suggestion.
Excellent. Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I haven't, I'm sorry, was somebody gonna say something?
No, go ahead, Kathy.
Oh, okay. This might sound a little odd from a business perspective, but I think sometimes business owners could use a little training when somebody unfamiliar who is different comes into their place of business. For example, if you're in a restaurant, don't always sit somebody like near the kitchen or near the restroom. Or if you're, like in my case, when I went to a business on Main Street in North Andover, the people were talking amongst themselves rather than recognizing me as a customer. So just small things, small behavioral things that could be misconstrued as being unwelcome, making somebody feel uncomfortable about returning back to the business.
Kathy, that's a great point too. And I think maybe that committee could also work on how to help businesses train their employees on inter-employee DEI work, because I know that's something that we're looking at internally, you know, and training their employees to be more tolerant of each other and people that come to the restaurant. So that's a great idea, because we could pass that resource on to the Black and Brown business owners as well to help their employees. So I think that's a great suggestion. Thank you. Deanna?
How about we have something like an education subcommittee, not education in terms of like the school system, but education in terms of a group that will work on identifying these areas, like Kathy just mentioned, of pockets where people would benefit from education. And we might find that in private businesses, we might find that in, you know, town hall, we might find it in some of the institutions in the town. But, you know, one subcommittee that will really look at ensuring that there's a means to educate the community, and that might be through the conversation series. I'm not familiar with that either, but a group that's really looking at how can we provide the information for people to do better. If they don't know how to do better, how can we ask them to do better?
Hands, I saw Vijay. I'm sorry, Vijay, you were waiting, and then Supraja and Lena.
Yeah, I was going to add to Diana that more on the, I come from engineering background, that's my background, and it's the data collection, right? If you don't know what your data is showing, how would you address the problem? So I was going to suggest we need to create a committee to collect the data in different areas, and then look to see what are our serious problems that exist, and pick the top 3, and you know, and then follow what I think that's what Diana was trying to tell too, right? Try to find these big areas that we can address.
And I'll share with everyone after the meeting. Dave provided a very nice groundwork for data for us, demographic data and other data on the community that would be a great place for this subcommittee to start their work. So thank you for that, Dave.
I just did some Google search on what's out there.
Looks like you spent all day. No wonder we know you're retired, right?
No.
Supraja, you're next.
I actually had a quick question first about the conversation series. Can you just explain that a little bit?
So I wish I could, but I wasn't here when they had it. It's my understanding there was a speaker series that would come and have meetings, kind of like what the library does with some of their series.
You know how long ago?
I'm sorry?
You know how long ago?
I've been trying to find information on the genesis of it and some of its background, and I haven't had a heck of a lot of luck. So that's kind of the bad news, is that I can't really find the background. But I think the good news is that we can create our own and kind of start from, scratch and say, okay, well, there was a communication series and here's our conversation series, and we're going to, make it our own and make it new. So it's my understanding they would pick a topic and bring in an expert, on that topic and offer it to the community, obviously for free.
Yeah, no, actually Race Amity Club, we started a podcast a few months ago doing exactly the same thing. We actually weren't able to get like experts on our podcast, but I feel like it would be really nice just adding to like Deanna's point, after we collect data and see like what kind of topics need to be discussed with the town, like what kind of topics we should educate people about. I think that at least, and I know like now speaker sessions are a little difficult with COVID restrictions, but I feel like it'd be really awesome if like, we could have like a podcast type of situation.
Well, I know COVID does make it difficult, but I know Bria has done some for the library series. I know you've done some as well. So I think, to the extent that we can do the Zoom or the podcast, until God willing, we get through this COVID stuff, we can do some virtual events. And I think for the meantime, that's going to be our main transmission of information is going to be electronically. I'm sorry, Reverend.
And Denise, just speaking to that, at Rolling Ridge, we've actually done all of our programming now online, and we've actually found some good success with it. We actually do a spirituality and race conversation once a month, and we do find that you are able to create good dialogue in community online. So online platforms do work for conversations like this.
Great, good. I'm finding with some of my professional associations, the actual meeting attendance is higher because people don't have to drive to a conference center. They can just, jump on their computer online. Lena, you are next.
Yes, I would love to see some sort of support group for inclusion of minority small businesses or welcoming group that would make it easier for them to connect to other businesses in the town, something that would help, especially since we're talking about this, but with any and all minority groups that want to open a restaurant, a small business, and come into a barrier of not knowing how or when or to be accepted, really. So I thought that would be really interesting to have a group to discuss that and how to help.
How about also welcoming new residents?
Great.
Yeah.
Dee, do I have to raise my hand?
Yes, you do, EJ.
Okay.
Just because you have a gun doesn't mean you can.
This is going back to data collection, what VJ mentioned. So, I mean, demographic information, that's digging deep, but you can get that information. I know in the police department, years past, we've done surveys to identify, people's fears of crimes, what their major concerns are in North Andover, so we can allocate resources in the police department.
Good.
Has there been thought about a committee or a subcommittee to put together some sort of a questionnaire or survey to go out to people, and a delivery method? I know we did ours through the tax bills, but a delivery method is probably more inclusive. And tech savvy or not, if that's a delivery method or if there's something else, but maybe a committee to come up with a survey and a delivery method, and then compiling those stats so that we actually know what community concerns are and we can address those.
Excellent. Yes, outstanding. Yeah, I think there's so many different ways we can gather data, either, paper, electronically. I know that our previous IT director was amazing with the Google Forms and getting things out there. I know in graduate school I had a lot of experience with statistical data analysis, so I think that's definitely something, because we can't address a problem that we don't really know the exact root or where we want to go with that. So that's an excellent suggestion. So great. So that
Can I just add something to all of that? I just want to keep in mind that North Andover has a lot of economic diversity. And as we're talking about welcoming small businesses or businesses owned by minorities, new residents, sending out surveys with tax bills, we have to remember that there's a large segment of the population in North Andover that don't get property tax bills, that English is a second language for, that they have just, their economic demographic puts them in a position where they're not necessarily accessing these things that we've just talked about. So we have to be mindful that there are, you may be surprised, many folks, even in North Andover, and I think those who are in the school department can attest to this, who still have issues with access to technology, the physical access to it, but also knowing how to use it. So we have to be mindful of all these things as we're moving forward, that, there's a lot of diversity in every way in North Andover.
Thank you. Great point. Anything else? So I'll just recap kind of what we've Dave, go ahead.
I'll have to stick in my 2 cents for the Council on Aging. There are 6,000 plus people who are retired or retired age in North Andover. And in the last few weeks, over 100 a week have been getting food assistance. And there's a lot of needs among those who are elderly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So the 7 different areas we've identified for subcommittees: economic development, economic diversity and housing, business and any sort of training, business training, employee training, education, data, support groups for welcoming and connecting to other businesses, a general welcoming of new residents, which I think would be nicely piggyback to the welcoming of the businesses, and how to get out a survey. So looking at how we can survey and figure out where the areas of need are, so we can get work that's targeted towards that. Oh, Jennifer, sorry, just.
I just want to make sure that we delineate between the education that I think Dana was trying to get to, which is more community education, as opposed to working specifically with the schools in terms of curriculum, and also really being thoughtful about how we can bring anti-bias, anti-racism training into the schools as well.
That's a good point. There probably should be 2 different, and I would think community education would also social media. How are we going to get the word out on what we're doing to the greater good? And we happen to have a social media expert in Asia Valdez. So there you go. Bria, I'm sorry, did you have a hit up?
Yes, I wanted to add one more suggestion, a public health committee. Just thinking about mental health. A lot of people are going through different mental health issues because of the pandemic. Thinking about transportation, not many people have cars, and there's not a commuter rail stop in North Andover. The bus doesn't run that frequently, so that can be a barrier for many people just to access food and other resources. And also thinking about food insecurity. There are many people who are struggling to purchase groceries. So what are we doing to support those who are in need of food or other mental health or just health services in general? Thinking about those who may think they have COVID but don't have health insurance. So what are we doing to make sure that they get access to free testing and treatment? So I really think there needs to be a public health committee to look at these different dimensions of wellness and so forth.
Great. Tony?
Just to piggyback off of that, just adding some resources also for substance abuse and different ways, especially during this time.
Great. Thank you. All right, so that was 9 solid ideas. Excellent. All right. Okay, so anyone else have anything to contribute? We'll move on to the speaker series. Okay, great. So I'm looking to see if we can start generating some ideas for some speaker series. So does anyone know of anyone that they think would be a good speaker, or has had a webinar or even a meeting recently with someone who they think might, be someone we could reach out to have come and, do a presentation via Google Meets or Zoom for Town of North Andover?
I think one thing that would be helpful would be to determine what kind of topic we're looking for. I've had speakers in the district. I'm not sure that they would necessarily be appropriate for the town, but I do have access and information about other speakers. But I think it's how do we want to start with the speaker? How do we want to frame that? I think that has to be part of the conversation first.
Excellent, excellent. That's why I'm coming to the experts. Any ideas?
Dee, I have a question. Is there a budget for speakers?
That's a great question. I will find that out.
All right, I'll speak up, Dee. So obviously I explained during the intro that I'm here for the police department. I'm here for the town, but from the police perspective. And because of the events that actually got us to this point, which I think is great. I mentioned to you, Dee, I have a friend, Detective Lieutenant Mario Millette. He's state police, and he is teaching their in-service class on fair and impartial policing, which, if you're not aware of it, it kind of explains why police are there's been a lot of pushback. All right. Once tempers flared, Black Lives Matter, there's pushback from police, and it all has to do with the terms racism and racist. And it kind of breaks it down to, it eliminates those terms and breaks it down to bias, and that there's explicit and implicit bias. Explicit being that's like, years ago where those are the people that know they're biased. They're racist. They say the negative things and they don't care. All right. That's the one everyone in society pretty much agrees is bad. It's the implicit bias that builds based on everybody has an implicit bias based on things that have happened to you in the past. And it addresses in policing how to control and how to manage any implicit biases you may have. And basically it uses there's 4 tenets to the fair and impartial policing, and it's about treating every situation the same, giving everyone a voice, being fair and equitable in your decision making, and going in with open minds. And it's he's a phenomenal speaker. He said he'd do whatever I asked, and I just think it's great to hear that. And I know I'm going to bring it up to our chief to get that training here in the police department. Just because it's good, it kind of makes officers recognize their biases. And again, it's in all walks of life. Everyone has a bias. Whether even if you're a Ford or a Chevy guy, if you had a Ford that broke down on time, you're never going to buy a Ford again. That's an implicit bias. All right, and that's obviously minimizing what's out there now, but I think it's just good for people to recognize that.
Good, thank you.
I think that sounds like it's a great opportunity for the local law enforcement officers, but I don't think that sets a very good tone if we start out or include in a speaker series an officer when we've got a community that I think is very much still reeling from not just the events of George Floyd's murder, but every subsequent event after that. And, I can't agree with saying that we have to kind of wipe away the terms race and racism, because the reality is the crux of this entire problem is the racism, the structural racist foundations that are working within our communities, whether they be implicit or explicit. And so I think I'd caution us as a committee to really be thoughtful about how we put this together, because if we want to be inclusive, we need to be really careful about how we do that.
Supraja, you have your hand up?
Sure.
Oh, sorry, Jay. Do you want to go, Supraja, Jay? Ladies before gentlemen.
So I
Supraja
was
goes
gonna,
first.
I was
No,
gonna,
just kidding. Go
sorry.
ahead. No, go ahead, Jay.
No, I was going to say that in our company we had similar training that EJ was talking about. So I can check to see how, implicit bias. It's just training about this implicit bias and explicit bias, especially in hiring and all that exists, right? So we all, as a leaders in our company, got trained. So even if not, I understand the perception that could have created that it's coming from law enforcement, but I can look in my company to see what was this training and come from a general perspective, right? We did series of such trainings on this topic over last 6 months, because of COVID and all that. So I can get that list, the speakers and everything, and present to the committee the different series. I think we had 4 or 5 trainings. Each of them is like an hour or so.
That would be great. Thank you. Supraja, you had your hand up too?
Yeah, I actually have a friend who actually did some research on public health and its effect on like society and like economics. And it was basically how like your socioeconomic class affected the type of healthcare you get. We're actually gonna have her on the podcast, but she's a senior at BU right now, so she is a little busy. But I would love to reach out to her, see if she would like to come and talk about that.
Reverend Jay?
And so good, just kind of a clarifying question about the series. I do agree with what Jennifer was saying about the fact that if we were to start with the police, that might create a negative overtone. But if we were to put together a series of different speakers reflecting different areas or different communities, it would show that there is a holistic sense that we want to be able to hold together as a community. So rather than just saying we're doing this one and that's it, if we were to have a series of speakers that were publicized together, that would show that there is a holistic vision that we are holding up for our community. So my suggestion would be I think Eric's suggestion of that speaker is a good one, but I think it needs to be balanced with some other community speakers addressing some of the other concerns that might be out there. And to put it together as a maybe 3 to 5 part series would be very powerful.
Thank you. I completely agree, and I thank Jennifer and you for that input. Tony, you had your hand up too?
Yeah, I kind of second that. I can see both point of views as far as Jennifer's point of view as well, the placement of it. But I do think if we're going to be about inclusion, then, that is kind of a conversation that may need to be had at some point. So I agree with maybe the order of it.
Cantor, you have your hand up. Thank you.
I do, thanks. I think having a large group of people from different areas of the community sounds really powerful. I am also, like Jen and like others have expressed, a little leery of the idea of starting with implicit and explicit bias without naming different kinds of biases. I think that runs the risk of generalizing past the points of particular harm that people experience every day. And I wonder what it might look like to start a series with the basics, with a little definition and a little history on different kinds of biases that people experience, particular ones: racism, gender bias, sexuality and sexual orientation bias, anti-Semitism, like just a roundup of these so that we can have a better idea of our working terms and maybe a little bit of history of them in our country, and then start moving into some of these other speakers. That's just a thought.
Thank you. Excellent suggestion. Bria, Would you mind, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but would you mind talking about the series that you just did with um, about the white privilege? Because I think that was very powerful, and I think that might help us kind of frame what I'm looking, or what I think that the selectmen are looking for us to present to them. So I sorry to put you on the spot, but it was just an outstanding evening. So if you could just give us a little bit output on that, and then I saw a couple of other hands go up.
Yes, a few weeks ago, the Andover Memorial Library, I believe that's the name, they hosted an event with Debbie Irving, and she was talking to people about, racism, the history, talking about redlining, and just how that's affected our zoning boards today, and thinking about housing and those who were able to afford to buy homes and those who were not. So she gave a good overview of the history behind why some of these issues are still persisting in society today. I also agree with Jen and Bear. I think we need to get clear with the terms and making sure people know what the different biases are. And I also think there needs to be a history lesson. I really think that 400 plus years, right, that Black people have been dealing with systemic oppression and racism, and I think people need to understand the history, and not just what they were quote unquote taught in school, but really going beyond that, and not starting with slavery, because Black people had lives, were powerful way before that, right? And so I think there needs to be a good history lesson for people in the community to talk about things such as sundown towns. Was North Andover a sundown town? What are some sundown towns in the New England area? Not a lot of people know what sundown towns are, or what the Tulsa race massacre was, and so forth. So that's just my suggestion. But the event with Debbie Irving was really good. A lot of people didn't know that history. And I think people need to know the history in order to understand why these conversations are needed today.
Thank you. Someone had, EJ, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I don't know if what I said earlier was misinterpreted. I didn't mean that my speaker had to be first or anything like that. I just thought we were throwing out a bunch of speakers and it would be a series, because that's kind of what I envisioned it. And it seems like it was a little misinterpreted, but I'm all in on all these topics. And if we can align them the right way, I think it could work out great.
Great, thank you. Jay?
Yeah, I was just going to second what Bria said, that we did a history about Black people and what it was, and it had a profound effect on our CEO of US country president, and they took an unprecedented action to go and declare MLK as a holiday for whole of Schneider, which are 15,000 employees, right? So I think it'll change learning about history, what it is, and then go into very specific series. So I've seen firsthand this impact, at least in our company.
Good, thank you. Kathy?
I've heard some people say some things that are similar, and sort of my comment is, I think it would be helpful if we could sort of come to terms on what certain language means, what words or phrases or things mean to some people and versus the intent. So I think we're all saying the same thing, but I'm just sort of approaching it in a different way. Sometimes it's just helpful to define what the language is that we're using to discuss what we're talking about.
No, that's an excellent point. I've been learning so much over these past few months than I did in my whole postgraduate education. I consider myself an educated person, and I am clearly not when it comes to this topic. Dave, you're off mute. Go ahead.
Okay. I sat in on the first Zoom meeting for the town of Andover when this subject came up. And the town manager was very aggressive in supporting the discussion going forward. They appointed a staff person to help coordinate things. And within 2 weeks, all hell broke loose. And if you haven't heard that story, it's worth finding out. There were pickets at the staff person's house. His kids were threatened. He resigned, and lots of other painful things happened. And I think we have to understand that it's very important that the 16 people that are on the screen need to be unified, but also we need to understand that the community isn't always going to be where these 16 people are. And we're going to have to push it a little bit, and there's going to be pushback. And it's going to require that we be very unified.
Go ahead, Jen. Is it Jennifer or Jen? I'm sorry.
I prefer Jen. I don't know what it
Okay,
says up
Jen.
on my thing. I
Thank
can't see
you.
it. So I just want to kind of agree with what both Kathy and Dave are saying. I think it's so important that we as a group do a little bit of work together before we kind of go out into the community and start spreading our message. Where we talk about what does racism mean? What is structural racism? What are these different ideologies that we're trying to work against or to remove, particular barriers? Because if we don't have that consensus, we're going to be giving out mixed messages. And I think it's important that we're incredibly clear about what it is we want to do, how we're going to do it. And so perhaps the first speaker series is maybe for us, and we bring someone in who does anti-bias, anti-racism training to get us all on the same page, where we can really form a community bond together, the 16 of us, before we go out and kind of face the rest of the community as a group.
Outstanding. Reverend Jay.
I want to echo that because I think that gets into one of the concerns that I had about how quickly we should move forward. I like the fact that when Jay was talking about the importance of surveying, we do need to know where we're starting from. I think one of the things that I do when I do some leadership training is we have our what we call our current reality, and then we have our vision of where we want to go, and it's like a rubber band, and you need to be able to know how taut your rubber band needs to be, but you need to have your starting point before you can actually get started. And so we need to kind of, I think my sense would be is that we need to know where our community is so that we can then begin to pull the rubber band to be able to move them forward in the vision that we want for them. And building upon what Jen said, I think having us start looking where we are at and make sure that we are unified would be helpful. And so it could be that as we go through our own journey together as a community, we then begin to we start doing our survey of the community at that same time, so that after the months that we've spent together, we know how to start with the people that we're trying to reach and to target.
I agree. I think there's such a rush to do something that I think, Dave, your point is excellent. If you do something too quickly and you don't quite understand it, then the repercussions can be worse than if we take our time and be diligent and directive with what we do and make sure that we do it right. So thank you for that example. That was excellent. Ellen.
Hi, I appreciate all of these ideas, and I completely agree with everyone. And I think that it's a definite testament to even Denise, when you said, I'm learning so much, and I feel like everything that I knew before is different from, you're constantly growing and learning. And I feel like with Dave recognizing that, with what happened in Andover and us moving forward in North Andover, even thinking of us coming together first, and then sort of how we present this to the community, like not like we're preaching, here's what needs to happen, but almost echoing what we're doing here with the 16 of us and our different perspectives and our totally different backgrounds and our different, in us coming together and then like impacting the community in the same way, where it's sort of not, we're educating you, we're telling you what we know, where it's more of an open dialogue and a discussion, and people, being vulnerable and open to new ideas and accepting when their ideas are different from somebody else's, and learning to come together in that way.
Great, thank you. So excellent. I think that's a great idea. So I think what I need to try to do is figure out how we could have some sort of maybe a retreat to bring someone in to speak to exactly what Jen was talking about, to be able to get us all on the same page before we start our work, just to make sure that what we do going forward, is meaningful and that we're not, as Kathy said, using different terms and, because I've learned so much, like I said before, and terminology is everything, right? How you define something and the words that I was brought up with is probably not the words that other people were brought up with. So I think it's important that we all start at the same point so that we can all get to the same goal. Oh, Reverend Jay?
And I think related to that, it's also us sharing our stories, because I think that we don't even necessarily need to bring in someone. We could even just have opportunities for us to share our own journeys and to share our own struggles. And that often can be just as effective as bringing somebody out from the outside in.
Good. Thank you. All right, that was fantastic. Anyone else before we move on? Okay. So this was a member's suggestion, discussion of existing issues or concerns. So are there any existing issues or concerns that anyone would like to bring up that they know of in the community that we should really have on our radar as we start to move forward and do our work? Dave. I think you're on mute, Dave.
Thank you. Has the select board already established some kind of agenda they want to drop on this commission?
No.
Good.
Our mission statement is what the selectmen expect of us, and then we take it from there.
Well, it's a very comprehensive statement, but I don't want ulterior agendas happening.
I assure you, I know of no such thing. So does anyone want to take this one, or we move on to the data?
I think just a quick note.
Sure.
I know that in like our high school, I think Miss Marks and Race Amity, like our advisor, Mr. Brian Sheehy, talked about just how we learn about race and racism in the school, and how we can actually educate like high school students and have conversations. I know we talked about being vulnerable and talk about people's experiences and just kind of creating safer spaces where people can do that. And like our club strives to do that, but we only have so many members. So I guess just kind of bringing like safer spaces and more opportunities to learn in the high school would be something that'd be cool.
We heard from a lot of the students over the summer. The kids in the Race Amity group reached out to former students and current students, and they held some Google Meets where they talked about what would have been helpful as an experience in the town and in the schools as students learning more about diversity, and what they didn't learn and wish they did, and how we can change that, going right on down to the youngest kids. So there was a lot of interesting voices, and I felt very insightful voices during those conversations. So I think another thing, we've been doing work with just our teaching staff, and I think what Supraja just said, safe space, ability to be vulnerable, it is a big issue. And it takes some time and it takes some trust. But I think a lot of what we're seeing is that people come into these situations. Many of our staff had never heard of redlining. So people come in with really don't have a lot of this background or education, just like our students and former students were sharing with us. And I think many people don't even understand the privilege that is inherent in their being white, male, whatever it might be. And I think those are conversations that may be eye-opening to some people in terms of just what that inherent privilege is as well. So, and until you recognize that, it's often hard to look at things the way they need to be looked at. So.
Great. Excellent point. I think too, Supraja, you've done some podcasts. Asia has an excellent podcast of her and a few other, was it current and former North Andover High School students, Asia, that you were interviewed about your experience growing up in North Andover?
We're all out of high school.
So they did a really great podcast about what it was growing up in North Andover and not seeing a lot of people like them. And that's, I think, one thing that Asia has brought to youth and rec is that I've seen it firsthand that kids are like, wow, look at, I have a role model, you know, there's somebody like me who's a professional and look, you know, look what I can be. And she's provided so many resources to kids. So I think that's such an important thing is for us to tell our own stories too. Lena, do you have your hand up?
Yep. I just think that being inviting and being able to transcend the message that everyone is included into these, and being able to put it out to make it easy to understand and not bring up the complexity so that everyone can chip in different age groups or in different academic levels. And even a translator in certain instances would be significant to be able to have them feel part of what's happening in these sessions, because it doesn't serve any purpose if you don't understand what these beautiful speakers are saying. So I know it's impossible to get 3 or 4 different languages up and running, but I mean, the power of volunteers can be significant. And if it's going to bring that message out and the community together, I think it's important to make it accessible and understandable in all levels and all languages, not all languages, but the majority of the languages that we have in North Andover.
Lorraine, I think it's 26 different languages are spoken in the school system. It's upward of 20, which I was shocked.
Yeah, I don't have an accurate count today, but at one point it was over 30.
Over 30. Okay, so my information's dated as well. Wow.
Well,
so
that might be a little difficult to get 30
Yeah.
translators, but if we hit at least the biggest population, I think that would be very inclusive. Coming back to that.
I bet if you went on the street though and asked somebody walking by that was born and bred in North Andover how many languages are spoken in the schools, I bet they wouldn't say over 30. And that's kind of the education piece that we need to do. Kathy, did you have your? Oh, go
ahead. Yes, I did. I was getting so involved in the conversation, but my point is this: we've heard wonderful feedback from Lorene and Asia, and Suprika. But my question is this: those are wonderful stories. How do we share them? That just might be a place to start. I saw, Asia, help me with this. I saw some videos. I'm not sure if they were from the youth center, but they were certainly young people related to the high school. It might have been around race amity. But if these conversations have already occurred, they're already happening, what a wonderful snapshot to sort of educate people and open up their minds if we can just sort of capture them and share them.
Go ahead, Asia.
Yeah, so Rick kind of started like you know, he has his podcast. I don't know if you guys listen to any of them, but one of them, the title was like you know, starting the conversation. And you know, at the end of it, like he was like, we could have kept talking forever. He was like, I'm however old he is, he was like, and you guys are teaching me things. So, you know, I feel like that's something that's really important is, you know, just listening to different people, their different stories. That's just a start. You know, everybody deals with things different ways. My experience might be different than what another person of color or, you know, with a different background, whatever it may be. So I think it's important that, you know, we listen to different people just even in the town. And that was really cool that Rick did that. And I know we got good feedback. So maybe that's a place we can start as well.
Great. Jen.
So just going back to all of that and how you said under community education, maybe thinking about social media, perhaps we need a space both in social media and maybe on the town pages where we could gather this information and create a community resource area. Just, I can think of, using Twitter to engage folks, maybe direct them to interesting articles or to events that are coming up or ultimately our speaker series, but then also having a web page that isn't static but dynamic and really has a lot of information, sharing local stories that Asia and other folks have put together, and then also including resources for more information or further reading.
Reverend Jay.
I know that we've already moved on from the community conversations, but I think having the youth voices speak on the community conversations would be a very good topic, because in many respects, I think there would be a great openness to hearing what is going on from the schools, and having a video as well as maybe even having a panel of youth sharing would be very powerful. So I think that needs to be on the docket of potential topics for the series.
Great idea. We can go back to that. VJ, did you have your hand up? I think VJ's frozen. VJ? Nope. Cantor.
First of all, I have to apologize because I have to duck out in a minute, but in the vein of story sharing, if the committee is interested in building some familiarity and trust just with the stories that are here among the 18 of us, that is also something that we could do in a retreat-like setting. There's some really kind of robust story sharing models out there. I imagine Reverend Jay, among others, is pretty skilled in that. And that's a way that we could start to get better acquainted with each other's stories and build some cohesion as a committee as well. So I'm so grateful for everything that's been shared tonight, and I'm looking forward to the committee's work.
Thank you for your participation. We value your membership in this committee. Okay, did I see someone else with their hand up? Nope. Okay. All right, so if we're done with that, so the next agenda item, inclusion, equity, and diversity data, I just put out that on there because I was going to share some resources with everybody, but Dave kind of beat me to that. So what we will do is we will share some just demographic data, but I think that the subcommittee will need to kind of dig deeper into that, because I think the demographic data of the community doesn't really get to the heart of what I think we want to get to, is what are the real issues out there. Because you can look at demographic data, but that's not going to tell you really what the community wants or what the community needs or what the community is feeling. So in case, oh, Deanna, yep, go ahead.
Can we also just be mindful of the importance of data for our evaluation purposes as we move forward, so we know how effective our efforts are? So not just in terms of initial, like a community assessment, but ongoing. We should always be mindful of the need for data collection so that we can assess how well we're doing.
Like impact data? Like what impact we're having?
So like pre-test, post-test, like surveys, if we have events, things of that nature, just to get a sense of the ongoing work.
Perfect. Yep.
It-
VJ? The engineer.
Yeah, I was going to say it's KPIs and metrics that we create to track, are we progressing or not, right?
It's so funny because we all have different languages in our fields. So, my background is community psychology, and we call it different things. I don't know what you just said, Jay, but I'm sure it's great.
Yeah, the engineer knows his data. That's all we'll say to that one, right, Jay?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, any new business? Anyone want to bring anything up that they want to? Oh, Bria, you're on.
When I hear the word data, I'm always hesitant, because sometimes data to me can have a negative connotation, just thinking of, I don't want to hear alarming statistics, with no clear solutions available. So I just want to make sure that we're solution oriented when we're collecting data, not just saying, I don't know, 40% of our elderly population is experiencing food insecurity. You know, like, let's just not put out these alarming statistics, let's also have solutions backed with that. Like, okay, so here's the data and here's our solutions to address this to make sure that we can lower this number. So I just want us to keep that in mind, because oftentimes a lot of communities who are experiencing different things, they hear all these statistics and it's alarming, but where's the solution, right? I just don't want to hear that, you know, Black women are at higher risk of experiencing, you know, maternal death or complications after giving birth. I want to also hear what are some solutions that you have to help lower this. So I just want us to keep that in mind.
Lena?
So this is my first time in a situation like this, and I'm trying to understand. We can come up with these beautiful solutions, but how are they going to get executed?
So we make recommendations to the
Yeah.
board, and the board is the policymaker. So then the board can direct us to start a program, have a series. So we gather the data, gather the solution to Bria's point, gather the plan, and then present it to them, and then get their blessing, their buy-in, their economic support, which I'll find out what we have for that. And then we go out and then implement what they want us to do.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Anyone else have anything else they want to add? Okay, so hopefully everybody has their calendars. We're moving on to new business, and we're now on scheduling meeting data. I'm sorry, meeting date. Can't even read my own handwriting. So what do we think for a date? Can we do next month? I know November is a hard month with holidays. However, I'd like not a lot of time to go between this meeting and the next. I'd like to look at our retreat, which does not need to be facilitated, but I think Reverend Jay would be an excellent facilitator, just saying. What day of the week works best for people? I know initially Tuesdays was the best, but I think for Cantor and Reverend, Tuesdays weren't ideal. So I'm just trying to get as many people as we can at the table at the same time. And in the next meeting, we'll look at our subcommittees. We'll look at subcommittee assignments, as well as further vetting out the speaker series ideas.
How about the week of November 16th?
Okay, let me just bring up my calendar. So that would be the 17th. It looks like right now there's nothing on the public meeting calendar, which is important because now it's not just trying to get a room, it's trying to get the cable TV free, which is not always easy. Lena says, okay. Jen's nodding, thumbs up. Asia, Bria, oh my goodness, look at all these thumbs up. EJ, Tony, are you okay? Oh my God, all right. We actually have November 16th, looks like it's for everyone. So I will get that.
17th.
So I'm sorry. The week of the 16th, see, I shut my calendar, that's okay. Tuesday, November 17th at 7 p.m. The invitation will go out at 6. I apologize, but that's what we have to do for the cable TV. Excellent. Awesome. Thank you, everyone. I am so honored to be a part of this group. You have no idea. Lena's saying bye. All right, but with that, I need to hear a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, who was that?
I second.
Who moved? Tony, I'm sorry.
Tony.
And then Kathy, you seconded?
I sure did.
Right. Kathy's my wingman. All right. All right, so Tony moved, Kathy seconded. Any discussion on adjourning? Awesome. All in favor? Bless you. All right. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time, and we will be in touch very soon. I will send out the data that Dave was able to. Dave, bless you. Do you have allergies?
Yes, they're all allergies.
Oh, okay.
I hate this every year.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. We are adjourned at 8:21. Take care.